Hi, it's Imogen Lamport from Inside Out Style. Donna's question today says, my biggest challenge is selecting solid colours that work well together. Something, the shade or the hue or chroma or brightness or intensity causes too many of my solids to not work well. It doesn't help that I live in the Ozarks and I'm 100 miles from any clothing store, so I have to do most of my shopping by mail order. Also, I'm petite, so the selection of clothes that will fit and flatter is quite small. Any suggestions? So, Donna, when we're thinking about different colours, so there are three properties of colour. We have the intensity, so that's how bright the colour is. So intensity, saturation, they all mean the same thing. And we've got from really, really bright all the way down to very, very grey in there. So if we looked at something like this, dramatic swatch, which is bright, and compare it to something like this, sophisticated, which is more muted, these colours don't work together. Even though they are both deep, they've got the same value, they're both darker colours and they're both cool colours. This is much more muted than this one. And so therefore the colours don't work together. And so therefore this is why having a palette is a really good thing. And when you're using a colour palette, so for anybody who's got a colour palette, when you're in a store and you're saying, does this match, whatever I'm looking at, don't try and find one individual colour and say, well, it's pretty close to that, and so therefore I'll go with it. I always tell my clients, what you need to do is fan out the swatch. You want to get the swatch as a whole and compare it, because that's when you'll get the right intensity. And when you have that same intensity, because the overall intensity is going to be similar. The thing with printing, that it's very inexact. And so sometimes some colours are a little bit more bright and others are a little bit more muted. But when you look at it as a whole, the palette will give off that right intensity for you. And so therefore, if you look at this, you might say, this is brighter than my jacket. Yet this one here is more muted than my jacket. My jacket is in between these two palettes. So you're really looking for that same intensity overall in all your colours. And then you'll actually find that your colours work really easily together because it's getting that same intensity. So intensity, saturation, brightness, they all mean the same thing. And it's really just using a palette. And this is where using a palette can make it easier. Now, because you're doing mail order, sadly, it's a bit harder because you do not know what something's going to turn out like, and we can be disappointed when something turns up and it's not the same color as it appeared on screen. I mean, these days they're getting better at showing better colors on screen, but even then people's screens show things in different colors. So this is the one hard thing, that when you are shopping mail order, it is much harder. It may be worth every now and again doing some research and traveling somewhere where you can actually go shopping in person so that you can actually see the colours in person rather than judging from a photo. And of course, being petite, you have fewer options anyway because there just aren't as many clothes made for petites. And so that also, I understand, is making it harder for you. But really, when we're looking at saturation, always with a palette, we're looking at it as a whole. We're not just pulling out individual colours, and we're not just looking to match a specific colour. We're looking at, does it look like my colours? Has it got the same intensity? Has it got the same value? So how light or dark the colour is, and does it have the same undertone? So if I put on something like this, which is a warm palette, it does not have the same undertone, so it doesn't go. It's a different sort of blue than the blues that are in this palette. So yeah, it's really not easy, Donna, and I know it can be a bit of a pain, but my suggestion would be is maybe once a season or once every couple of times a year actually doing shopping, and then only shopping online when you really, really have to replace something, rather than doing all your shopping online if you're finding that an issue.